Hey there, you're listening to BD4, where there's no better way to get your Yankees and Knicks analysis. Yanks every series, Knicks every game, and MMA on occasion. Here's your host, RJ Carbone.
And a high drive into left center field. Stanley's going to watch another one fly. Are you kidding me? DiVincenzo a three. Bang! Bang! Knicks take a
Take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody.
At the wall. See ya! See ya! See ya! Mr. November.
Anthony for three. Bang! That one goes down and the game is tied.
Rose, you shook up the world again.
I did it again. But God did it, man. I really just had
Gonna have to. Brunson running away. Oh my! He has been the best player to put on that uniform.
Ball game over. Yankees win. The Yankees win.
And just like that, the New York Knicks are 1-0. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I know I haven't covered the Knicks in quite a couple of weeks here, but we're back. We're back and we're in full effect. And wow, was that a game to remember? That was fun. That was a lot of fun. You know, all the talk. It was a hell of a season. It was a hell of a long, taxing physically and mentally for the fans too season. You know, all the talk about the Knicks, the different look of this team, and you know, did they overcorrect a little too much in the offseason moves that they made? Is this defense ever going to put it together? Can they win this way with this head coach? And did they just do a little too much? All that talk. And you look up at the end of the day, and the Knicks have another 50-win season. Their first back-to-back 50-win season in, 30 years? And just all the stuff about, I don't know if this team is tough enough. I don't know if they have that same grit as last year's Knicks did. I think they're a little too soft, and, you know, are they a good matchup for Detroit, who's playing this tough brand of ball? They're trying to bring back the bad boy Pistons type style, and you got all the media talking their garbage, ESPN doing the ESPN stuff, Shaq doing his shtick, but nobody really cares about him or them. Just a lot of noise entering this series, a lot of negative attention, I felt like, on the Knicks, but the Knicks go out there, and it wasn't easy, but they put on a performance, and at least for a night, they were able to shut everybody up, including myself, with a 123-112 victory in Game 1 at the Garden over the Pistons. You had performances from all around the game that you really should give credit to guys. You know, Karl Anthony Towns, I think, was the best Knick in this game. We'll talk about him. Great two-way play throughout, especially he really started to get going offensively second quarter and on, but the defense is really what stood out with him. Arguably the key in the game, and which could be the key in the series. Mitch Robinson with just an outstanding first half defensively. I mean, we'll talk about that and the elite job in pick-and-roll coverage that he and OG were doing. You didn't get much from Mikal Bridges, but when is that different? Deuce McBride had a non-impact game offensively, but I thought the defense was solid. He had a big steal at the end of the first half, I think it was. Continued his solid defense in the second half. You know, the other guys on the second unit, Shamet was the first sub in, didn't really impact the game much offensively. Campaign, though, wow. That fourth quarter run, 21-0 run for the Knicks, started by Campaign, fueled by Campaign throughout, and he was a big reason the Knicks took this victory over the Pistons, right? They had a first half struggle. Third quarter was a battle, but OG was able to keep the Knicks in it scoring-wise for a little bit. Brunson struggled in the first half. He found it big time in the second half. Jalen Brunson finishes with 34 points on 12 for 27, whatever. 10 for 14 in the second half there. Outstanding job finding it. Obviously, Josh Hart helping him out in transition in the second half there. Josh Hart had a big second half. But I want to start by praising a man named Karl Anthony Towns. So we'll start by handing out our 2-game balls, and that's where Towns gets the first one among the starting unit. Karl Towns in this game, see if I can pull up the line. Here we go. 23 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 steals, 2 blocks, 0 turnovers. Shot 71%, 1 for 3 from 3, knocked down all of his free throws. And here's a number that was not just skewed by the impact of others on the floor. It was really telling. He was a plus 22 across his 39 minutes. And yes, you got all the offensive stuff, the incredibly difficult shot making, off balance shots, 360s, just making a shot with his back to the basket over his shoulder, contested shots, shots over help defense, shots from long range, really impressive, skilled shots. He got some looks off of pick and pops. The first quarter, the 3 he knocked down, Mikal comes off of floppy action, off a cat pin down that flows into a pick and pop set, gets a 3-point look up. You do wish he got more up. We'll talk more about that. But the offense was awesome, and he did a great job on defense, which we'll also get into in this episode. But Karl Anthony Towns gets his first game ball of the postseason now in game 1, and he's got 22 game balls on the season. Going to the second unit, you got to go and give it to Campaign, who scored 14 points overall. 71% from the field, 60% from 3, 100% at the line. Did this in 15 minutes. He was a plus 23. He was knocking down those same annoying ass shots that he did when he was with the Sixers against the Knicks in the first round last year. Those same just back-breaking, oh, you got to be kidding me type shots. And that's who he is, right? He is a microwave bucket getter who has a quick trigger. He's going to increase your pace. He's going to increase your 3-point volume, and that's why you like him. And he did exactly that, I thought, in the fourth quarter. It started with a couple of takes to the basket, left-handed finish, right-handed finish. But then once he got going, once the Knicks really started to take a bite into the lead and take the lead, he got going with the jump shots, 3-pointers. That started coming. And Campaign's a guy who, listen, I've not always been too high on Campaign this year. Okay? But for a guy who's on a minimum contract, he shows up. Yeah, also, you have to remember that part. He's not making a ton of money. This has been a bargain for the Knicks. So Campaign fueled off the Garden. He's really good at Madison Square Garden. He feeds off them. The Garden feeds off him. And his impact was 1,000% felt in this game. Now, that's his 16th game ball of the season, by the way. First of the postseason, obviously. I want to start by diving into the thick of some things here. Because my biggest concern going into this series was how the Knicks were going to defend those Cade Cunningham pick and rolls. We saw less drop coverage in the game the Knicks played the Pistons towards the end of the regular season. And I was hoping that would be the same case in this game. And it was. And the reason you don't want to rely on drop coverage against the Pistons is because when Cade Cunningham is coming off and he's getting to his spots in the mid-range area, that's devastating to play drop against. You do not want to let him get to his spots there. When you play drop coverage, you're going to yield those type of shots, those pull-ups, those long twos. And if you let Cade Cunningham get into his home there by playing drop coverage on him, he's going to drop 60 at the Garden. I know that. Like, he will. He will. You let him do it, he will. And so Tom Thibodeau said, we're not going to let that happen. And he went to a more aggressive, at the level coverage, high coverage, and he had the Knicks double the pick and roll, blitz it, trap it. You saw some hedging and some switching, but the Knicks were in a high coverage. They were in aggressive coverage on those pick and rolls. And yes, especially in the first half there, they were put into rotation and they were leaving a lot of their role players open, and their role players were knocking them down. And it hurt the Knicks a little bit. But I want to give credit to this head coach for sticking with the coverage and recognizing that variance will eventually play a factor here, and that role players will go back to being role players at some point. And that's exactly what happened in the second half. And the Knicks defense really started to become noticeable once the Pistons role players reverted back to who they were. And I thought just that was a perfect coverage to play the Pistons with. And I thought Karl Anthony Towns, of all the concerns about him this season, was really solid defensively in this game. He held up. This was one of his, if not the best defensive effort of the season from Cat. There were some moments where he maybe gave Cade Cunningham an easy pathway to the basket. But he was mainly strong. I thought his stance and his fundamentals, for the most part, were good. The active hands was what you really like to see. This is a guy who we've criticized a number of times before for these hands-down contests and just uncompetitive stances. Well, he was arriving at the screen in time. He was active. You really felt Cat's presence on top of those ball screens. And the Knicks were able to force numerous turnovers down the stretch against the Pistons like nobody's business with this high coverage. And Cade Cunningham did not drop 60. He scored 21 points on 21 shots, where he shot 38% and he yielded 6 turnovers. It was not a great game for Cade Cunningham. And I thought Towns' backline defense was even good down the stretch. Using his size, his wingspan, being a big. And when the Knicks were in a hedge coverage, even when the Pistons countered, I thought the Knicks were recovering well, and that's how Towns got one of his blocks there at the basket in the first half. There was some good switching for the most part. So it's going to be tough for JB Bickerstaff to counter, because even if he starts putting Jalen Brunson into action more, the Knicks aren't going to switch that. The Knicks are just going to fight over the top with OG, since OG's the one at the point of attack now. And man, how about those OG Mitch Robinson pick and rolls defensively? Like, when the Knicks did go to a drop, it was Mitch in drop coverage with OG up top at the point of attack. And that is a pick and roll that's just a cheat code for the Knicks. It's a cheat code. You had that one Cade Cunningham air ball towards the end of the second quarter. It was with Mitch and OG just forcing them into it. And Mitch is not just good in drop, but he's good when he's in a shallow drop or in a high coverage. And those Mitch OG pick and rolls were really effective. And I thought the defense or the Detroit offense definitely shied away at times from those Cunningham pick and rolls in the first half especially. And there was a lot of DHO or get actions instead, because they were worried about OG Anunoby's screen navigation. They did not want OG getting to Cade. And then when the Knicks ran Mitch with Cat, I thought there were moments where it paid off. I do the rest of the series think that the Knicks should be more willing to switch those more. Like when you're in those double big lineups and the Pistons still bring Cat into action, I think the Knicks should be willing to switch those because you've got Mitchell Robinson out there as backline insurance and help. And Cat's also pretty capable on the perimeter. He's shown that he can switch onto a small and hold his own for a couple of seconds. And again, if he gets beat, you've got Mitch Robinson in backside help. So that's one thing I do want to see more when you got the double big lineups out there. See if you can switch those pick and rolls a little more when Cat's brought into action. But for the most part, man, this defense was really strong. And it's something you saw start to come together more in the final month or two of the season. I know Brunson was out for a large part of that time, but the Knicks finished the season with a defensive rating that wasn't awful. It was like, they finished 13th or something like that. It wasn't far off, a top 10. So defensively, they were great. Offensively, they scored 123 points. I thought they did a really nice job, for the most part, optimizing spacing. 5 out, you saw some of those looks. You saw, when Mitch was out there alone, 4 out and 1, 4 out, 1 inside. Just different types of lineups where they were able to effectively use their spacing. Tibbs went to a 5 out alignment when Detroit started cross-matching. And then, Hart comes off the floor. He was also in early foul trouble. But, a big way to counter a 5 or a big way to counter a cross-match when they put the wing on Cat and the Hart, helping off of, or the wing helping off Hart. A big way to counter that is to not let them do it. Simple, right? Just remove the non-threat in Josh Hart and go to a 5 out with 5 shooters. That's how you get the big back to Towns. Actually, Detroit, when the Knicks initially went to their 5 out, Detroit kept Tobias on Towns for a second there, and they put Jalen Duran on to, I think, Mikal Bridges, and the Knicks were able to get Mikal a pretty easy look out of it from 3, so then they immediately went back to putting the big on Towns. So I think that's an option the Knicks need to look at more and keep that in their, kind of put a pin in that and remember that for tonight and the remainder of the series. I do think the Knicks still need to leverage that lineup better, right? When Towns does have the 5 on him in those 5 out lineups, you have to spam those 1-5 pick and pops. You have to put them in pick and roll. That's something you need to take advantage of, because when the big is on Towns, as a big, your instincts, you're going to sink. You're going to drop. You're going to be backtracking. You're going to be near the basket. That's something that you want to get Towns more 3-point looks up in volume. That's how you do it. I thought the Knicks did a nice job of exploiting switches. At the end of the first quarter there, you had OG Anunoby posting a small. You had the Dennis Schroeder switch. The Knicks got it to OG, posted Schroeder for a fadeaway jumper there at the end of the first quarter. And that's something you could see more, because when the Knicks space out properly, it's harder for Detroit to send help, right? They had Brunson throwing the entry, OG on the post, and then they had their 3 other guys spaced out, right? 2 wings on the perimeter. They had Cat near the dunker, who could also theoretically be on the corner in these alignments because he's obviously a threat from there also, but it's a good way to remove the help and prevent it from going to OG when he's posting on a small. And then when the Knicks were in a 4-out, 1-in lineup, those Mitch lineups, I think the spacing's good when they were using Mitch as a screener with the guards and wings spaced out. This way, Detroit is forced to pick one of two options, right? You either have to commit to tag the roll, or you have to stay home on the perimeter to prevent the three-point threat, right? And you saw a perfect example of the Knicks forcing the Pistons into that tough decision where it was in the first quarter. Brunson makes an incredible skip pass to OG on the weak corner, gets a three-point look up, and he knocks it down. So when you got Mitch out there screening and you're spacing out and Mitch rolls, do I commit? Do I stay home? You know, I do think the Knicks need to take better advantage of their spacing in these lineups. They're not always positioned properly, and you saw some of those moments in this game. If you're spaced out on the three-point line, you're providing a three-point threat. Simple. And you're also removing help on Brunson drives and Brunson actions. You know, and when you're in these double big lineups where Cat's out there with Mitch, I do wish you either screen lower with Mitch so he's a threat as a roller, or use somebody else to screen, because Mitch is not great in the short roll. If Detroit's going to double the screen, you prefer Mitch to be rolling outside of the actual action itself. But for the most part, I really like the way the Knicks were able to attack Detroit's defense, and they were able to counter those cross matches effectively. Towns did a really nice job from the post. You know, when Detroit was cross-matching and they had Jalen Duran to Josh Hart and they put Tobias on Towns, I thought the Knicks did a really good job beating the help when Towns ISO'd and posted the wing matchup. You know, even with the help coming off of Josh Hart in pre-rotations, Cat, I thought his ability to make quicker reads and pass out of those doubles was effective in this game. You know, you saw it throughout. Early in the first quarter, he's on the post with help coming off Josh Hart. Hart relocates to the weak side dunker to draw Cade Cunningham in, and that leaves Jalen Duran 1v2 on the perimeter where it was OG and somebody else spacing. So Cat finds OG for an open three with only one guy to defend two people. Early in the second quarter, Towns is in triple threat on the strong elbow. Cam Payne is one pass away to the right. Cam cuts down to the basket to open up a driving gap for Towns. Just moves the help lower down near the basket for Cat. Cat gets a pretty easy drive and finish. You also had a possession in the second quarter. Josh Hart, he's the one throwing the entry pass to Towns on the post. That's how you effectively counter that. You take the big man out of the paint by using Hart to throw the entry, right? So he took Jalen Duran out of the paint. Shamet, who was on the weak side corner, was able to this way cut to the basket with no big down there. He gets the pass from Towns. The Knicks scored a basket. Middle of the second quarter, Towns is posting Cade with Mitch on the weak side dunker. So Duran was late to the help because if he commits to Mitch, Mitch gets an easy look at the basket. Or if he commits to the help, Mitch gets an easy look at the basket. And if Tobias tags Mitch, then OG Anunoby is left wide for a three-pointer on the weak corner here. You know, and you saw the same exact thing a few minutes later in the second quarter with Stewart in the game over Jalen Duran. This time Stewart didn't even bother to bring help, and he stayed home. So it's the decision-making the Pistons have to make because of the gravity of these certain Knicks and the way they're positioned on the floor. There were other times in this game where I thought Towns was just dominating smalls on the post in single coverage when Detroit didn't choose to send help. A couple of times where he overpowered Cade, and a couple of times on Tobias and even Asar Thompson. A couple of times in the fourth quarter where you had Jalen Brunson clearing out the empty side, cutting to the weak side, relocating to remove help with Towns trying to post. Led to a couple of baskets for Cat. So the only thing I will add is when Detroit went away from cross-matching and when they couldn't, like when they went to their 3-guard lineup in the third quarter there, I didn't think the Knicks exploited that very well. In those lineups, you have to be spamming those Towns pick and pops because he's going to have the big on him since there's 3 guards on the floor. Or just put one of those 3 smaller guards into action or into an isolation. I didn't always think the Knicks played it to their advantage. Instead, they were kind of playing into Detroit's hands in that third quarter where Cat was trying to post another center. There were some times where it didn't really make much sense. But overall, it was an excellent first game, man. And that's exactly the way the Knicks need to attack this Detroit Pistons team. So that's really all the thoughts I have on the first game. So with that said, we're going to head to our break, come back, wrap it up with our trivia question, and then that'll be that. Stay with us here on BD4. We'll be right back. BD4 is available on social media for those who want to follow. You can find BD4 on Instagram at BD4Pod. You can find us on X at BD4Pod. And you can find us on Facebook by simply searching BD4. Hey guys, just a quick reminder, this podcast is also available in video format on YouTube. So be sure to go over to the YouTube channel, BD4, subscribe, like the videos, comment, and tell me how much I suck or maybe how much you like the video. We'd very much appreciate it. Don't have time to sit down and watch a video? You can listen to BD4 on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Don't forget to give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And you can also watch the video format on Spotify too. If you feel like supporting the podcast, you can Venmo at Robert-Carbone-JR-28. We really appreciate your support. Do you enjoy Yankees baseball but are tired of hearing me yap? I have a suggestion for you. Go check out Yankee Crazy Podcast. Greg Gill is a Yankees podcaster on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and he's now selling merch. Go to yankeecrazy.myshopify.com. Stay connected with us. Visit bd4blog.com to explore our blog, tune into our latest podcasts, and follow us on social media. Thank you for being a part of this community. Okay, so the Knicks go back at it tonight. After a day off yesterday, they're back at it tonight, 7:30 now. 7:30 at Madison Square Garden tonight for their second home game before they go on the road. But this is a big one for the Knicks, in my opinion. This is huge. You don't want this team getting any semblance of momentum. There's the old adage, I think it's a Pat Riley quote, the series doesn't begin until the road team gets their first win. And all Detroit needs to do is grab one of these games at the Garden. And they're going to go home happy. And so if they grab the second one, they're going to be going home with a little bit of more momentum. And the Knicks really need to take care of it. And I think if the Knicks win tonight, I think there's a very great chance this series is over in 5. I think if the Knicks don't win tonight, I think there's a very great chance this series goes 6, maybe even 7. I still think the Knicks can pull it out either way, but I do think this is a very important game for my mental sanity. So let's end this shit tonight, man. Let's sweep at home here, and then we'll see what happens after that. But big game tonight, in my opinion, and the Knicks are looking to do the same thing they did, hopefully with more consistency throughout the game. So we'll see. Now, with that said, we're going to wrap it up here with our trivia question of the day. Let's get to it. All right. For this episode 850 or 849 of the podcast, our trivia question. In Game 5 of the Knicks-Pistons 1992 playoff series, Patrick Ewing scored 31 points. Who is the second leading scorer for the Knicks with 19 points? All right. In Game 5 of the Knicks 1992 playoff series, Patrick Ewing scored 31 points for the Knicks against the Pistons. Who is the second leading scorer for the Knicks with 19 points? Let me know the answer. Wherever you can reach me, folks, I appreciate it. Thank you all for tuning into this show. Awesome win for the Knicks. Let's get the Game 2 win here tonight at the Garden. And then we'd be in really good shape. So, good first night. Good first night. Thank you all for tuning in. I'll see you soon. Well, if you made it this far, that means you listened to or watched the entire episode. Thank you. Just remember to follow, subscribe, download, rate and review, and all that fun stuff to help out the podcast. And I will see you in the next episode of BD4.